Billionaire thought he had everything, till a kind waitress showed him the love his daughter truly needed and changed their lives forever. It was a chilly afternoon in the small town of Willow Creek, the kind of cold that made people hurry along the sidewalks. With their coats zipped up and scarves wrapped tightly around their necks, the sky was gray, clouds heavy and low, hinting at rain. Daniel Carter, a man who had grown used to the bustling cities and endless demands of his business empire, stepped out of his sleek black car and into the quiet streets. Today was different from his usual busy routine. Today he wasn't coming to town for business or meetings or negotiations. He was here for something he often neglected in his life, his daughter. Lily. Daniel had always been a man of immense wealth and influence. His name was known in boardrooms across the country. His face appeared in magazines and business journals, praised for his sharp mind and strategic genius. But behind all that, he was a man who had sacrificed too much for success. His work had taken him far away from the small moments in life, like reading a bedtime story, tying shoelaces, or simply listening to the laughter of his daughter. After the sudden passing of his wife 2 years ago, Daniel had buried himself deeper in work, thinking that keeping busy would fill the emptiness. But it didn't, not even close. Lily, his 8-year-old daughter, walked beside him, small and fragile, holding tightly onto her doll. Her eyes were a mirror of her father's sadness, though tinged with the innocence of a child who didn't fully understand why life sometimes felt heavy. She wore a bright yellow raincoat that contrasted with the gray of the day, a small attempt to bring cheer to an otherwise dull afternoon. But even that color couldn't hide the subtle sadness in her expression. She was quiet, unusually so, and Daniel noticed it immediately. Something about her silence made him uneasy, though he tried to mask it behind his usual calm, authoritative demeanor. They entered the small diner at the corner of the street. The diner had a warm glow spilling from its windows, a welcome contrast to the cold, gray day outside. It was the kind of place where the smell of fresh pancakes and coffee wrapped around you like a cozy blanket. Inside, the hum of conversation, the clinking of cutlery, and the soft background music created a sense of comfort that Daniel rarely experienced. It was simple, humble. Human Emily, the waitress, was behind the counter when they walked in. She was young, probably in her mid-20s, with a kind smile that immediately caught Daniel's attention. But it wasn't just her smile. It was the way she looked at people, really looked at them, as if she could see right into their hearts. When she saw Lily, her eyes softened. She noticed the little girl's tight grip on her doll, the way her small hands trembled slightly, and the faint frown that never seemed to leave her lips. Emily had a gift for noticing things others overlooked, especially the silent pain children sometimes carried. Daniel chose a booth near the window, and they both sat down. He placed his briefcase on the seat beside him, a reminder of the world he was always running to, always tethered to. He tried to distract himself with his phone, scrolling through emails and messages. But his attention kept drifting to Lily. She picked at her food quietly, her small fingers barely touching the pancakes. Daniel wondered what was going through her mind. He wanted to ask her, wanted to pull her into his arms and tell her everything was okay, but the words stuck in his throat. He wasn't sure she would even answer. Emily approached their table with a gentle step. Carrying a tray of pancakes and orange juice, she leaned slightly toward Lily, her eyes warm and inviting. "Hi there," she said softly, kneeling just enough to be at eye level with the little girl. "I like your doll. What's her name?" Lily looked up, startled at first. She wasn't used to people asking her questions in such a gentle way. She muttered the name Daisy, barely loud enough for Emily to hear. Emily nodded encouragingly. "Daisy is a lovely name. Is she your best friend?" Lily hesitated, then nodded slowly. Emily smiled and gently touched Daisy's hand. "I can see why. She's very lucky to have you." Something inside Daniel stirred as he watched this interaction. He had been so used to the world of numbers, contracts, and deadlines that he had forgotten what genuine care looked like. This young waitress, with no obligations to him, no reason to be kind, was making Lily smile. And it was a real smile, the kind that reached her eyes and lit up her face. Daniel felt a pang of guilt. He realized that he had not been able to make his daughter smile like this for a long time. He had been present physically, but not emotionally. And here, in this simple diner, with no fanfare or grandeur, someone else was giving her the attention and love he had failed to provide. Lily began to open up. She talked about Daisy, about school, about how she missed her mother. Her words were soft, hesitant at first, but with Emily's warmth, they grew more confident. Daniel listened quietly, almost holding his breath, afraid to interrupt this fragile moment. He realized that this was more than just a waitress being kind. This was human connection, something he had neglected in the pursuit of wealth. Emily had a way of making people feel safe, seen, and valued. Daniel had never truly felt that way about himself, and he was struck by the realization of how much he had been missing in life as they ate. Daniel observed Emily subtly, noting the care she took with every gesture. The way she poured the juice just right, how she adjusted the napkin beside Lily's plate, how she spoke softly to make sure the little girl understood everything. It wasn't just service, it was love. And Daniel couldn't help but contrast it with his own life, where love had become transactional and moments had become numbers on a spreadsheet by the time they finished their meal. Daniel felt something shifting inside him. It was a small spark, almost imperceptible, but real. He realized that this afternoon, this ordinary, quiet afternoon in a humble diner, had reminded him of what truly mattered. Not the money, not the deals, not the reputation, but the small, fleeting moments of human connection, of love, and of care. Emily had unknowingly shown him a glimpse of a life he had long forgotten existed. As they left the diner, Daniel thanked Emily, though his words felt inadequate. She smiled, waved, and returned to her duties, probably unaware of the impact she had just made on a man who had everything yet understood very little about happiness. Lily held tightly to her doll, her small fingers brushing against Daniel's hand as they walked to the car. For the first time in a long time, Daniel felt a mix of gratitude, awe, and determination. He knew that he wanted more moments like this. Moments where he could be present, truly present in his daughter's life. And so, what began as a simple visit to a diner on a cold, gray afternoon became the first step in a journey toward healing, toward connection, and toward rediscovering the true meaning of love. Daniel Carter, the billionaire, had been reminded that sometimes the smallest gestures, the warmth of a smile, the care of a stranger, the innocence of a child could change everything. And little did he know, this afternoon was only the beginning. After that afternoon at the diner, Daniel Carter thought he had done enough. He had spent some quiet time with Lily, watched her smile, and even shared a few words that felt more personal than anything he had said in months. But life, as it often does, had its own way of teaching lessons. That evening, Daniel realized just how much he had been absent in Lily's world, not just physically, but emotionally. They returned home in silence. Lily sat quietly in the back seat of the car, clutching her doll Daisy. While Daniel drove through the empty streets of Willow Creek, he watched her small face in the rearview mirror, trying to read her expression. There was something she wanted to say, he could tell, but she seemed hesitant. Daniel remembered that in the past, whenever she was upset, he would rush to solve problems with money or by giving in to her wishes. But he now realized that those gestures were not enough. They never really reached her heart. What she needed most wasn't gifts or comfort bought with money, but attention, love, and understanding when they entered their home. Sprawling mansion that spoke of wealth and success, Daniel's feelings of guilt only deepened. The house was silent, almost too quiet. Every room was perfectly decorated, immaculately maintained, and yet it lacked the warmth that a home should have. Lily went straight to her room, her small feet making soft thuds on the marble floor. She placed Daisy carefully on the bed and sat down, hugging her knees. Daniel followed quietly, not wanting to intrude, but feeling that something was wrong. "Lily," he said softly, approaching her. She looked up at him with wide, glistening eyes. "Do you want to talk about your day?" Lily shook her head, then quickly looked away. Daniel knelt beside her, his large hands hovering near her shoulders, unsure whether to touch her. He remembered how, when she was younger, he could make her laugh with a silly face or a tickle. But that magic seemed gone now, His daughter's tears were different. They weren't just sadness. They were something heavier. Something that spoke of loneliness and longing. Emily's kindness earlier that day had left a deep impression on Daniel. But it also made him painfully aware of his own shortcomings. Here was a young woman, a complete stranger, who had been able to soothe Lily's heart with her gentle words and her caring presence. Daniel realized that for months, maybe even years, he had not been able to do that. His work, his endless meetings, and his obsession with success had kept him away from the very thing he valued most: his daughter's happiness. Later that evening, while Daniel was in his study, catching up on some work, he heard the sound of quiet sobs coming from Lily's room. His heart clenched. He put down his pen and walked down the hallway toward the sound. Peeking inside, he saw Lily sitting on the floor. Daisy cradled tightly in her arms, her small shoulders shaking with soft cries. Daniel froze, unsure what to do. He had never been good at handling emotional moments. In the past, he would have told her to stop crying or offered her a toy, thinking that would fix everything. But now, watching her fragile form, he knew that no object, no money, no distraction could replace the comfort she truly needed. It was then that Emily appeared in Daniel's mind, the way she had knelt beside Lily in the diner, holding her gently, whispering words of comfort. Daniel realized that she had instinctively known how to connect with a child's heart, something he had never learned. He wanted to be that person for Lily, but he didn't know how. His mind raced, trying to remember all the advice from parenting books, therapists, and colleagues. None of it seemed to apply to this moment. All he could do was kneel beside her and speak from the heart. "Lily," he said, his voice soft and unsteady, "I'm here. I'm right here. It's okay to cry." Lily looked up at him, her eyes red and watery. For a moment she hesitated, unsure if she should trust him with her tears. But Daniel reached out slowly, resting his hand lightly on hers. "You don't have to be strong all the time. It's okay to feel sad," he whispered. Something shifted. Lily let out a small hiccup of sobs and leaned against him, her arms wrapped around his waist. Daniel held her close, feeling the tiny weight of her body, feeling the warmth that had been missing in their relationship for so long. It was a strange and humbling sensation for a man used to power, control, and influence. Here, in this quiet, intimate moment, he had no control. No authority, only the fragile trust of a little girl who needed her father's love. As the minutes passed, Daniel realized that this moment was more than just comforting his daughter. It was a mirror reflecting his own pain and regrets. He thought of all the birthdays he had missed, the school events he had ignored, the nights when Lily had quietly cried herself to sleep while he was away on business trips. The tears that now fell from her eyes were not just for the broken doll or the small hurts of the day. They were tears for all the time lost, all the emotional distance that had grown between them. For the first time, Daniel allowed himself to feel the depth of that loss. It was overwhelming. He wanted to fix everything instantly, to erase all the months of absence and neglect. But he knew that it couldn't be done with words or gifts alone. It required presence, patience, and genuine care. And so he stayed there holding Lily, whispering soft reassurances, letting her cry and express all the feelings she had kept bottled up. Eventually, Lily's sobs softened. She lifted her head slightly, resting her cheek against Daniel's chest. "Daddy," she whispered, her small voice trembling, "I missed you." Daniel felt a lump in his throat. "I missed you too, baby," he said, his voice breaking slightly. "I'm so sorry I wasn't here like I should have been. I promise I'll try to be better." In that quiet, tear-filled moment, Daniel made a silent vow to himself. He would change. Not tomorrow, not next week, but now. He would learn how to be the father Lily needed, just as Emily had shown him how a little kindness and attention could heal a child's heart. After some time, Lily finally wiped her tears with the corner of her sleeve and managed a small smile. It was hesitant, fragile, and imperfect, but it was a start. Daniel smiled back, a mixture of relief, hope, and determination flooding his heart. He realized that moments like these, though painful, were also beautiful. They were opportunities to reconnect, to repair what had been broken, and to build something stronger and deeper than ever before. That night, as Daniel tucked Lily into bed, he lingered by her side. Watching her drift off to sleep, Daisy was placed carefully beside her, as if nothing had happened, yet everything had changed. Daniel left the room quietly, not wanting to disturb her, but carrying with him a new understanding. He understood now that life was not about wealth, success, or power. It was about love, connection, and presence. And he vowed to never forget that lesson again. Outside, the rain finally began to fall, softly pattering against the windows. It was as if the world itself was washing away the sadness, giving them a fresh start. Daniel sat in the quiet of his study, reflecting on the day, on Lily's tears, and on the kindness of a stranger who had shown him what it truly meant to care. Emily, though far away, had become a silent teacher, showing him the way to reach his daughter's heart. And in that moment, Daniel Carter, the billionaire who had always believed that money could solve everything, realized something profound. Nothing in the world could replace a father's love, a father's attention, and a father's presence. And he knew deep in his heart that everything was about to change, not just for Lily, but for himself as well. The next morning dawned crisp and bright, a welcome change from the gray, rainy day before. Daniel Carter woke up earlier than usual, not to check his emails or prepare for a meeting, but to see Lily. He found her sitting at the breakfast table. Her hair still messy from sleep, her eyes bright but thoughtful. She held Daisy tightly, her small fingers wrapped around the doll's worn arms. Daniel paused at the doorway, watching her silently, a strange feeling of both pride and guilt settling in his chest. After the tears and heartfelt conversation of the previous evening, thought something had shifted between them. Lily seemed more willing to share her thoughts and feelings, though there was still a quiet hesitation in her eyes. Daniel realized that rebuilding trust and connection would not be instant. It would take patience, consistency, and genuine care. But he was ready. For the first time in a long time, he felt determined to be present in a way he had never been before. They ate breakfast together, the clinking of cutlery on plates filling the warm kitchen with a comforting rhythm. "Oh, Daniel, try." To make conversation, asking Lily about her day at school, her favorite subjects, and the small things she enjoyed. At first, her answers were short and cautious, but as the minutes passed, she began to open up more. She told him about a class project she had been working on, about her best friend at school, and about the little victories and disappointments she experienced each day. As Lily spoke, Daniel listened with a focused attention he hadn't given her before. He noticed the way her eyes lit up when she talked about things she loved, the way her small hands moved with excitement, and the subtle expressions that revealed her true emotions. Each detail made him realize how much he had missed in the past, and how much richer his life could be if he allowed himself to truly see her. After breakfast, Daniel decided to take Lily out for a small walk in the nearby park. It was a simple plan, but he knew it would be an opportunity to spend quality time with her, away from the distractions of work and wealth. The park was quiet, with only a few families and children scattered across the playground. The sun filtered gently through the trees, casting warm golden light across the paths. Lily ran ahead for a moment, her laughter ringing out like a melody that Daniel had long forgotten existed. As they walked, Daniel tried to engage her in conversation, asking about her friends, her favorite games, and what made her happiest. Lily began to share more freely, revealing small fears, doubts, and insecurities that she had been carrying alone. She spoke of moments at school when she had felt left out, times she missed her mother, and the quiet sadness she sometimes felt at home. Daniel's heart ached as he listened. He had always assumed that providing for her financially was enough, but he now realized that money could never fill the emotional void. What Lily needed was his attention, his time, and his presence. Later that day, Daniel received a reminder that life often has a way of testing us. As he and Lily returned to the diner where they had met Emily, they saw her through the window, serving other customers with her usual warmth and attention. Daniel felt a strange mixture of gratitude and admiration. He wanted to thank her again, not just for the kindness she had shown Lily, but for opening his eyes to the depth of love and care a human being could offer without expecting anything in return. He decided to approach her, but before he could, he noticed something that made his heart stop. Lily, who had been chatting happily with him, suddenly froze. Her small face fell, and she glanced toward Emily with wide, startled eyes. Daniel followed her gaze and realized that Emily had noticed them as well. For a moment, Lily hesitated, unsure how to react. Daniel quickly realized that this was more than curiosity. Lily seemed to be looking for comfort, the same kind of gentle reassurance Emily had provided the day before. Emily's eyes softened as she saw Lily. Without saying a word, she knelt down to Lily's level, just as she had before, and offered a warm smile. "Hi there," she said gently. Lily's small body relaxed slightly, and she took a tentative step closer. Daniel watched silently, both amazed and humbled. He realized that Emily's presence had a profound effect on his daughter, something he had never been able to replicate. Her warmth, her attentiveness, and her natural care created a safe space for Lily, a space where she could express herself freely without fear. For the next few minutes, Emily engaged with Lily in a playful, comforting manner. She talked about Daisy, asked questions about school, and listened patiently to Lily's responses. Daniel noticed the way his daughter's face brightened, how her eyes sparkled with excitement, and how her small hands moved animatedly as she spoke. It was a scene that touched him deeply. He felt a mix of gratitude and regret. Gratitude for Emily's kindness and regret for the times he'd failed to provide such moments for Lily. Daniel decided to stay nearby, observing quietly rather than intervening. He wanted Lily to feel safe, to have this moment with Emily without the pressure of his presence. As he watched, he began to understand a deeper truth about human connection. It was not enough to provide for someone materially. Empathy and genuine care were what truly nurtured the soul. Emily's simple gestures, kneeling down to speak softly, maintaining eye contact and listening without judgment, had created an environment where Lily could feel seen, valued, and loved. As the afternoon passed, Daniel and Lily spent more time together in the diner, but in a different way than before. Emily's influence was evident in Lily's increased confidence and willingness to engage. She laughed more freely, shared stories without hesitation, and even initiated conversations with Daniel, something she had struggled to do before. Daniel felt a sense of hope rising within him. He realized that moments like these, though small, were powerful. They could heal, nurture, and transform relationships in ways that no amount of money could achieve. Later, as they left the diner, Daniel felt a sense of responsibility he had never experienced before. He knew that Emily had provided his daughter with something invaluable: love, attention, and understanding. But he also realized that he could no longer rely on strangers to provide these for Lily. It was his duty, his privilege, and his responsibility to step into her life fully, to be present, and to offer the love she deserved. The encounter had not only deepened his understanding of parenting, but it also sparked a transformation within himself, a desire to be more compassionate, more patient, and more attentive. That evening, back at home, Daniel reflected on the day's events. He thought about Lily's laughter, her excitement, and her moments of hesitation and vulnerability. He thought about Emily, the kind stranger who had unknowingly taught him a lesson about love and connection. And he thought about himself, the man who had everything in terms of wealth and power, yet had discovered how little he had in terms of emotional presence. As Lily prepared for bed, Daniel sat by her side, holding her hand. "I know I haven't been there as much as I should have," he said softly, "but I want to change that. I want to be here for you every day in ways that matter." Lily looked up at him, her eyes bright with hope and trust. "Will you really, Daddy?" she asked quietly. Daniel smiled, feeling a deep sense of commitment and love. "Yes, sweetheart, I promise." That night, as Daniel left Lily's room, he felt a mix of exhaustion and fulfillment. The day had been emotionally intense, but it had also been transformative. He understood that parenting was not about perfection, but about presence. It was about noticing the small moments, offering comfort, and nurturing a child's heart with patience and love. He knew that the journey ahead would not be easy, but he was ready to walk it. And so, part 3 of Daniel's story marked a turning point. It was no longer just about observing Lily's emotions or reacting to her tears. It was about understanding them, learning from them, and beginning the process of reconnecting in a meaningful way. With Emily's subtle guidance and Lily's courage, Daniel was stepping into a new chapter of life, one where love, empathy, and attention would finally replace distance and neglect. The days that followed were filled with small but meaningful changes. Daniel Carter found himself thinking more and more about Lily, not just about her safety or her needs, but about her happiness, her comfort, and her little joys. He realized that being a father wasn't about giving her everything money could buy. It was about giving her time, love, and attention. But life, as he knew too well, had a way of testing even the best intentions. One afternoon, as Daniel and Lily returned to the diner to see Emily, they noticed that something was different. Emily was standing behind the counter, her usually bright and confident smile slightly faded. She moved a little slower than usual, and there was a tension in her posture that Daniel couldn't quite place. As they approached, Daniel sensed that something serious was happening. Emily's eyes met his for a brief moment, and he noticed a flicker of worry, something he hadn't seen before. After finishing a few tables, Emily finally had a moment to speak with them. "It's my mother," she said quietly, her voice trembling. "She's very sick, and the medical bills are more than I can manage. I'm trying everything I can, but I don't know how I'm going to make it." Daniel felt a pang in his chest. He had grown accustomed to solving problems with money, yet he hesitated. He had never wanted anyone to feel indebted to him, and yet he couldn't ignore the situation. He realized that here was an opportunity not just to help Emily, but to show Lily what compassion and generosity really meant. Lily, sensing the worry in Emily's voice, looked at Daniel with concern. She wanted to do something, anything, to help the woman who had become so important to both of them. Daniel took a deep breath and said softly, "Emily, I want to help. Let me take care of your mother's medical bills. I'll make sure she gets the treatment she needs." Emily's eyes widened. She shook her head quickly, almost refusing. I can't accept that," she whispered. "I don't want charity. I just want to do what's right." Daniel smiled gently, understanding her hesitation. "This isn't charity," he said. "It's helping someone who needs it. It's what humans do for each other. And I want you to know that helping your mother is something I want to do with love, not obligation." For a moment, Emily hesitated, then nodded slowly, accepting the offer. Though her gratitude was mixed with humility, Daniel realized that her pride and her strength were part of what made her so remarkable. Here was a young woman carrying so much responsibility, yet she remained compassionate and selfless, always thinking about others before herself. Daniel felt a deep respect for her, but also a growing awareness of how much he had to learn about caring for people in a real, meaningful way. That evening, Daniel made the arrangements discreetly. He didn't want Emily to feel embarrassed or indebted. He simply wanted her mother to receive the care she needed. He worked quietly behind the scenes, contacting the hospital and ensuring everything was in place. Meanwhile, Lily watched her father with wide eyes, absorbing every detail. She didn't fully understand the complexity of the arrangements, but she understood the essence. Her father was helping someone in need, not for recognition, not for fame, but because it was the right thing to do. The following day, Daniel suggested they visit Emily's mother at the hospital. Lily hesitated at first, unsure how Emily would feel, but Daniel reassured her. "It's okay," he said. "We're going there to offer support and love. That's all." When they arrived, Emily was waiting outside her mother's room. She looked nervous, but also grateful. Daniel stepped forward and introduced himself gently, holding nothing back. "I'm here to help," he said simply. "I want to make sure your mother gets the care she deserves." Emily's mother, weak and frail, smiled faintly, her eyes filled with relief. Lily walked slowly toward her, holding her doll Daisy, and reached out to take her hand. "Hi, Mrs. Wilson," she said softly. "We're here to help." The small gesture, innocent yet profound, created a moment of warmth that filled the room. Daniel realized that this was what true care looked like, not grand gestures or flashy displays, but quiet, sincere actions that made a real difference in someone's life. As the days passed, Emily's mother's condition began to improve. The doctors were impressed with her progress, and Emily could finally breathe a little easier. She continued working at the diner, but now with a lighter heart. Knowing that her mother was safe and receiving proper treatment, Daniel visited occasionally, observing quietly, never imposing, but always present when needed. He noticed the subtle changes in Emily, the relief in her eyes, the renewed energy in her movements, and the quiet smile that returned to her face. Through all of this, Lily remained a constant presence, offering small acts of kindness and affection. She brought flowers to the hospital, drew pictures for Emily's mother, and even shared stories of her own day to make her smile. Daniel watched her with pride, realizing that his daughter was learning compassion and empathy from these experiences. She was seeing firsthand how acts of kindness could change lives, and he knew that these lessons would stay with her forever. One afternoon, Daniel and Lily sat together in the park, reflecting on everything that had happened. Lily held Daisy tightly, her eyes thoughtful. "Daddy," she said softly, "Emily is so nice. She helped me when I was sad, and now she's helping her mom. I want to be like her someday." Daniel smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. "You already are, Lily," he said gently. "You have a kind heart, and you're learning that helping others makes a big difference. Emily just showed us how strong and caring people can be." Daniel realized that his own perspective was shifting as well. For years, he had measured success in numbers, profits, and achievements. But now, he understood that true success was measured in love, compassion, and the ability to make a difference in someone's life. Emily had taught him that lessons like these couldn't be bought. They had to be learned through observation, experience, and genuine care. One rainy evening, Daniel found himself reflecting deeply on the journey so far. He thought about how far he had come, how much he had learned, and how much closer he had grown to Lily. He thought about Emily, who had become a silent teacher, showing him the power of kindness and empathy. And he thought about the future, realizing that this was just the beginning. There would be more challenges, more obstacles, and more moments that would test his patience and understanding. But he also knew that he was ready to face them, because he had discovered something far more valuable than wealth. For success, he had discovered the power of human connection. That night, as Daniel tucked Lily into bed, he lingered by her side longer than usual. She was quiet, exhausted from the emotional day, but her eyes were calm and content. "I'm proud of you, Lily," he whispered. "You're learning to care, to be kind, and to see the good in people. And I promise I'll keep learning too." Lily smiled faintly, reaching out to touch his hand. "I love you, Daddy," she said softly. Daniel felt a lump in his throat. "I love you too, sweetheart," he replied, his voice full of emotion. Through all of this, Daniel realized that life was not about avoiding problems or controlling outcomes. It was about presence, compassion, and the courage to step in and help when it mattered most. Emily had shown him the way, but it was his responsibility now to continue the lessons, to be the father Lily deserved, and to live a life where kindness and empathy were not optional, but essential. By the end of Part 4, Daniel had undergone a profound transformation. He had moved from a man defined by wealth and power to a father defined by love and presence. Emily's challenges and Lily's trust had created an opportunity for him to grow in ways he had never imagined. And as he looked at his daughter sleeping peacefully, he knew that everything was about to change, not just for her, but for himself and for everyone whose life he would touch going forward. The days following Emily's mother's recovery were filled with an unusual warmth and quiet happiness that had been missing from Daniel Carter's life for years. The mansion that once echoed with emptiness now felt alive. Lily's laughter rang through the halls as she played with Daisy, and Daniel finally felt the kind of peace that no business deal or success could provide. But it wasn't just the small moments at home that made life brighter. It was the deep bond that had formed between Emily, Lily, and himself. Emily had become more than just the kind stranger who had comforted Lily in the diner. She had become a friend, a guide, and, in many ways, a bridge to the emotional world Daniel had long ignored. Her presence was quiet but powerful. She didn't need to say much. Her genuine care and attentiveness spoke volumes. Daniel watched her interact with Lily, noting how effortlessly she could make the little girl feel safe, happy, and loved. And he realized something profound. He wanted to be like that too, not just for Lily, but for the people around him. One sunny morning, Daniel suggested that they all spend the day together outside the city. He wanted Lily to experience joy and freedom, but he also wanted Emily to see that they were grateful for her presence and guidance. They drove to a nearby lakeside park where the water shimmered under the sunlight and birds sang softly in the trees. Daniel noticed Lily's excitement as she ran ahead, her laughter filling the air, and Emily smiling as she followed, keeping a careful eye on the little girl as they settled by the lakeside for a small picnic. Daniel found himself observing Emily closely. She was so focused on Lily's happiness, so patient with her questions and stories, and so warm in her interactions that he felt a deep respect and admiration for her. It wasn't just her kindness that impressed him, it was her strength. She had endured hardships, cared for her sick mother, worked tirelessly to make ends meet, and yet she never let it change her fundamental goodness. Daniel felt a quiet inspiration stirring within him. He realized that life was about the people we touch, the love we give, and the small acts of kindness that can ripple outward in unimaginable ways, while Lily played near the water, building little sandcastles and laughing when the waves splashed her feet. Daniel and Emily sat together on a nearby bench. Daniel finally found the courage to speak from the heart. "Emily," he said softly, "I want to thank you. Not just for what you did for Lily, but for showing me what it means to truly care. I've spent so long chasing success, thinking I was giving everything my daughter needed, but I was wrong. You've reminded me that presence, kindness, and love are far more important than money or power." Emily looked at him with gentle eyes, her face reflecting both gratitude and humility. "Daniel," she replied softly, "I didn't do anything special. I just listened and cared. Lily needed someone to notice her, and I just happened to be there. But I'm glad I could help." Daniel shook his head slightly. "No, Emily, you did more than that. You reminded me how to be a father. You reminded me how to be human." That afternoon, they returned home, and Daniel decided to do something he had never done before. He invited Emily and her mother to the mansion for dinner. It was a simple gesture, yet it symbolized everything he had learned in the past weeks, that love, gratitude, and connection were more important than appearances or pride. Emily hesitated at first, unsure if she should accept, but Lily eagerly ran to her, holding her hand and guiding her inside. "Please come," Lily said, her eyes shining with excitement. "We want you to eat with us." The evening was filled with laughter, stories, and shared moments. Emily's mother, now healthier and more energetic, smiled genuinely for the first time in weeks. Lily was animated, showing her favorite toys, sharing little anecdotes, and even teaching Emily a small song she had learned at school. Daniel watched it all with a sense of fulfillment he had never known. The walls of the mansion no longer felt cold or empty, they were alive with warmth, joy, and genuine connection. As the night progressed, Daniel realized that he had changed in ways deeper than he had anticipated. He was no longer just a wealthy businessman focused on profits. He had learned to value emotional richness, compassion, and the joy of being present. He watched Emily interact with his daughter and thought about how she had sparked this transformation. It wasn't just the comfort she had given Lily, it was the example she had set. She had shown patience, selflessness, and courage. And Daniel knew that he wanted to embody those same qualities, not just for Lily, but for the world around him. Later that evening, after Emily and her mother had left, Daniel sat with Lily in her room. He tucked Daisy carefully beside her, just as Lily had placed her there. "Daddy," Lily said softly, "I'm happy we can spend time together now. And I like that Emily is part of our lives too." Daniel smiled, his heart full. "Me too, sweetheart. Me too. Life is better when we share it with people we care about." In the weeks and months that followed, their lives continued to change. Daniel made a conscious effort to be more present in Lily's life. He attended her school events, spent weekends on simple outings, and most importantly, listened to her. Lily, in turn, blossomed. She became more confident, expressive, and joyful. She laughed freely, shared her thoughts openly, and grew to understand the power of kindness and empathy. Daniel often noticed her mimicking Emily's gentle care, showing small acts of thoughtfulness that reflected the lessons she had. Absorbed, Emily remained an important part of their lives. She continued to visit, share meals, and spend time with Lily. But the relationship had evolved beyond help or obligation. It was now rooted in mutual respect, trust, and genuine friendship. Daniel admired her not only for her kindness, but also for her resilience and strength. And over time, he realized that his admiration had grown into something deeper, quiet, respectful affection born from shared experiences, gratitude, and emotional intimacy. One afternoon, as Daniel watched Emily help Lily with a small art project, he felt a profound sense of gratitude. She had entered their lives at a critical moment, and her presence had sparked transformations in both father and daughter. He realized that life often gives us teachers in unexpected forms, sometimes strangers, sometimes challenges, and sometimes ordinary people who remind us of what we've been missing. Emily had been that teacher for him, showing him how to care, how to love, and how to reconnect with his daughter in ways that truly mattered. The mansion, once silent and lifeless, now echoed with laughter, love, and warmth. Daniel had learned that wealth and power could never replace human connection. He had learned that the greatest success was not in business or money, but in the bonds we create, the love we give, and the lives we touch. Lily's happiness became a reflection of this lesson, testament to the power of presence, care, and empathy. Months later, Daniel reflected on the journey that had begun with a simple act of kindness in a small diner. What had started as a quiet afternoon with a caring waitress had evolved into a profound transformation. He had learned to be a father, a friend, and a more compassionate human being. And he had learned that love, in its purest form, is not measured by wealth or status, but by the time, attention, and care we give to those who matter most. As he tucked Lily into bed one night, he held her hand and whispered softly, "I promise to always be here for you, to love you, and to guide you. And I promise to live a life that makes you proud." Lily's eyes shone with trust and affection. "I love you, Daddy," she said, her voice filled with certainty. Daniel kissed her forehead gently. "I love you too, sweetheart. More than anything." In the quiet of that night, Daniel sat in his study, reflecting on the incredible journey. Emily's kindness had changed their lives. Lily's trust had healed his heart. And his newfound understanding of love had reshaped his priorities. He knew that life would continue to bring challenges, but he also knew that he was ready to face them with love, presence, and compassion guiding every step. The story of Daniel, Lily, and Emily was no longer just a story of sadness and struggle. It was a story of transformation, healing, and the extraordinary power of human kindness. And as Daniel looked around at the home now filled with laughter, warmth, and love, he realized that everything had truly changed. The billionaire who once thought money could solve every problem had discovered the one thing that money could never buy, the power of connection, empathy, and unconditional love.